I woke up in the middle of the night, and someone was in my room. It wasn't my husband. Hey, my name is Mary, and what my husband's brother did while I was sleeping will haunt me forever. Don't forget to subscribe, because this story is one you'll never forget. My name is Mary, and I never thought a simple act of kindness would turn my life upside down. It all started when my husband, Jason, got a call from his younger brother, Ryan. I was in the kitchen, chopping vegetables for dinner, when Jason walked in with his phone pressed to his ear. His face was soft, the way it always gets when he's talking to family. "Yeah, man, of course," Jason said, nodding. "You can stay as long as you need." I glanced up, curious. Jason hung up and turned to me, his brown eyes warm but a little hesitant. That was Ryan. He's in between jobs again. Lost his apartment. I told him he could crash here for a bit. "Is that okay with you?" I smiled. Jason's always been the type to help anyone, especially his little brother. Ryan was 26, 5 years younger than Jason, and he'd been bouncing around since college, never quite finding his footing. I'd only met him a few times, at our wedding 3 years ago and a couple of family holidays. He seemed nice enough, quiet, maybe a little awkward, but family is family. "Of course it's okay," I said, wiping my hands on a dish towel. "We've got the guest room." "How long is he staying?" Jason shrugged, running a hand through his dark hair. "A few weeks, maybe, just until he gets back on his feet." I nodded. Our house wasn't huge, but it was cozy, a 2-bedroom place we bought after the wedding. The guest room was mostly a storage spot for old books and exercise equipment we never used, but it had a bed. We could make it work. Ryan showed up 2 days later. It was a Saturday afternoon, and I was folding laundry in the living room when the doorbell rang. Jason jumped up to get it, and I heard their voices before I saw them, Jason's loud laugh, followed by a quieter, mumbled reply. "Hey, Mary," Jason called as he walked back in, Ryan trailing behind him. "Look who's here." Ryan stood in the doorway, a duffel bag slung over one shoulder. He was taller than I remembered, with the same dark hair as Jason but messier, falling into his eyes. He wore a faded gray hoodie and jeans that looked like they'd seen better days. His smile was small, almost shy. "Hi, Mary," he said, his voice low. "Thanks for letting me stay." "No problem at all," I said, setting down a stack of towels. "We're happy to have you." He nodded, his eyes flickering over me for just a second before he looked away. I didn't think much of it then. People get nervous meeting family again after a while. I figured he was just settling in. That first day was easy, normal. Jason helped Ryan carry his stuff to the guest room while I finished dinner, spaghetti and meatballs, something simple. We sat around the kitchen table, and Jason did most of the talking, catching Ryan up on his job at the auto shop and teasing him about old childhood stories. Ryan laughed sometimes, but he was quiet, picking at his food. Every now and then, I'd catch him glancing at me, not staring, just quick looks, like he was trying to figure me out. "You okay, Ryan?" I asked at one point, passing him the garlic bread. "You're pretty quiet." He froze for a second, then smiled. "Yeah, I'm good. Just tired from the drive." "Where were you coming from again?" I asked, trying to keep things light. "Upstate," he said. "Been staying with a friend for a bit. Didn't work out." Jason clapped him on the shoulder. "Well, you're here now, man. We'll get you sorted." Ryan nodded, and that was that. After dinner, he offered to help with the dishes, but I waved him off. "You're a guest," I said. "Go unpack or something." He hesitated, then said, "Thanks, Mary. You're really nice." It was a simple thing to say, but the way he said it, soft, with that quick glance again, made me pause. I brushed it off, though. I was probably reading too much into it. Ryan was just grateful, right? The next few days were fine. Ryan kept to himself mostly, spending time in the guest room, or scrolling on his phone in the living room. Jason was happy to have his brother around, and I was happy for Jason. He'd always felt a little responsible for Ryan, like it was his job to look out for him. I got it. I didn't have siblings myself, but I knew how much family meant to Jason. Ryan started joining us for meals, and he'd help out here and there, taking out the trash, mowing the lawn one afternoon. He was polite, always saying please and thank you. But there were moments that felt off, like when I was watering the plants in the backyard, and I turned to find Ryan watching me from the porch. He didn't say anything, just stood there, hands in his pockets. When I waved, he waved back, then went inside. Probably just bored, I told myself. He didn't have a job yet, and Jason was at work most days, so Ryan was stuck at home with me. I worked from home as a graphic designer, but my office was just a desk in the corner of our bedroom. I kept busy with projects, and Ryan didn't bother me. Not really. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that he was watching me sometimes. Not in an obvious way, just little glances when I walked by, or when I was laughing with Jason at dinner. It wasn't creepy, not exactly, but it was enough to make me wonder. One evening, about a week after Ryan arrived, I was in the kitchen making coffee. Jason was still at the shop, working late to finish a car repair. Ryan came in, grabbing a glass of water from the sink. I didn't think much of it until he spoke. "You're good for him, you know," he said, leaning against the counter. I looked up surprised. "For Jason?" "Yeah." He took a sip of water, his eyes on me. "He's lucky." I smiled, not sure what to say. "Thanks. I'm lucky too." Ryan didn't say anything else, just stood there for a moment before heading back to his room. I stared at the coffee maker, my stomach twisting just a little. It was a compliment, nothing more. So, why did it feel like something else? That night, I lay in bed next to Jason, listening to his steady breathing. The house was quiet, but my mind wasn't. I kept thinking about Ryan's words, his glances, the way he seemed to linger just a little too long sometimes. I told myself I was being silly. He was Jason's brother. He was family. But deep down, I wasn't so sure. The next few days after Ryan's comment in the kitchen, I tried to act normal. I told myself I was overthinking things. Ryan was just being nice, maybe a little awkward. But the feeling in my gut wouldn't go away. It was like a pebble in my shoe, small, but impossible to ignore. Ryan started getting more comfortable in our house. Too comfortable, if I'm honest. One morning, I came downstairs to find him in the kitchen, pouring cereal, wearing nothing but a pair of sweatpants. His hair was messy from sleep, and he looked up with a lazy smile. "Morning, Mary," he said, like it was no big deal. "Morning," I mumbled, heading for the coffee maker. I kept my eyes on the counter, but I could feel him watching me. It wasn't just that he was shirtless, it was the way he stood there, casual but deliberate, like he wanted me to notice. I shook it off and focused on my coffee. Jason was already at work, and I had a deadline for a client logo, so I didn't have time to dwell. But when I turned to grab milk from the fridge, Ryan was still there, leaning against the counter, eating his cereal slowly. "Need help with anything today?" he asked. I forced a smile. "No, I'm good. Just work." He nodded, but he didn't move. "You're always working. Jason says you're some kind of art genius." I laughed, hoping it didn't sound as nervous as I felt. "Hardly. Just pays the bills." "You're modest," he said, his voice low. "It's cute." The word hung in the air. Cute. My stomach twisted, and I busied myself wiping the counter, even though it was clean. "Thanks," I said, keeping my tone neutral. "I should get to my desk." He didn't say anything else, just took another bite of cereal and watched me leave the kitchen. I felt his eyes on my back the whole way. That wasn't the only time. Later that week, I was in the living room, scrolling through my phone, when Ryan came in and sat on the couch across from me. He didn't say anything at first, just stretched out, one arm slung over the back of the couch. I glanced up and he was looking at me, not at his phone, not at the TV, just at me. "Something up?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Nah," he said, shrugging. "Just chilling." "You?" "Same." I locked my phone and stood, gonna grab some water. In the kitchen, I took a deep breath. I wasn't imagining it, was I? The way he looked at me, it wasn't just friendly. It felt personal. Too personal. But every time I tried to pin it down, I second-guessed myself. Maybe he was just bored. Maybe this was how he was with everyone. Jason didn't seem to notice anything. When he was home, Ryan was different, quieter, more like the polite guest he'd been at first. They'd joke around, play video games, talk about old times. Seeing them together made me feel guilty for even thinking something was off. Ryan was Jason's brother. He wouldn't cross a line, would he? One afternoon, I was folding laundry in the bedroom when I heard footsteps in the hall. The door was open, and I looked up to see Ryan passing by. He slowed down, his eyes catching mine for a second too long. "Need a hand?" he asked, nodding at the pile of clothes. "No, I'm fine," I said quickly. "Thanks, though." He lingered in the doorway, one hand on the frame. "You sure? I'm pretty good at folding socks." I forced a laugh. "I'll manage." He smiled, a slow, easy smile that made my skin prickle. "All right, let me know if you change your mind." When he finally walked away, I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. I stared at the laundry, my hands shaking just a little. It wasn't what he said. It was how he said it. Like there was something else behind his words, something I couldn't quite name. That night, I lay awake next to Jason, staring at the ceiling. I wanted to tell him how uneasy Ryan was making me. But what would I even say? That his brother looked at me funny? That he called me cute? It sounded ridiculous in my head. Jason trusted Ryan. He trusted me. I didn't want to start trouble over nothing. But it didn't feel like nothing. It was a Thursday night, and Jason had to stay late at the auto shop again. He'd texted me around 6, saying a customer's car had a tricky transmission issue and he'd be home closer to midnight. I didn't mind too much. Jason loved his job, and I was used to quiet evenings now and then. But with Ryan in the house, the idea of being alone with him made my stomach knot up. I kept busy after dinner, locking myself in our bedroom with my laptop to finish some design work. Ryan had been in the living room, scrolling on his phone, and I'd mumbled something about a deadline to avoid small talk. He just nodded, but I felt his eyes on me as I climbed the stairs. I closed the bedroom door and turned on some music, trying to drown out the unease creeping into my chest. By 10, my eyes were burning from staring at the screen. I saved my work, changed into pajamas, an old t-shirt and sweatpants, and crawled into bed. The house was quiet, except for the faint hum of the TV downstairs. Ryan was probably still awake, but I didn't care. I just wanted to sleep and forget the weird tension that seemed to follow him everywhere. I don't know how long I was out, maybe an hour, maybe less, but I woke up with a jolt, my heart racing like I'd had a bad dream. The room was dark, the only light coming from the faint glow of the street lamp through the curtains. I lay still, trying to figure out what had pulled me out of sleep. The music was off. The house was silent. Then I felt it. Not a sound, not a movement, just a presence. Like the air in the room had shifted, gotten heavier. My skin prickled, and I held my breath, listening. Was Jason home? I glanced at the clock on my nightstand. 11:17. Too early for him. I turned my head slowly, squinting into the shadows. That's when I saw it. A shape near the foot of the bed. Tall, motionless, just standing there. My heart slammed against my ribs, and I fumbled for the lamp on the nightstand, my fingers clumsy with panic. The switch clicked, and soft yellow light flooded the room. It was Ryan. He was standing at the edge of the bed, wearing a dark hoodie and jeans, his hands stuffed in his pockets. His face was half-shadowed, but his eyes were wide, locked on me. For a second, neither of us moved. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. My mouth went dry, and all I could hear was the blood pounding in my ears. "Ryan." My voice came out small, shaky. What are you doing?" He blinked, like he was snapping out of a trance. He took a step back, his hands coming out of his pockets as he raised them slightly. I thought I heard something. Like a noise. I was just checking. My hands gripped the blanket, pulling it up to my chest like it could protect me. A noise. I repeated, my voice sharper now. "In my room." "Yeah, He ran a hand through his hair, looking away. "I didn't mean to scare you. I just wanted to make sure you were okay." I stared at him, my mind racing. His words didn't add up. The house was dead, quiet, no creaks, no bangs, nothing that would bring him up here. And the way he'd been standing there so still, watching me, it didn't feel like he was checking anything. It felt like he'd been there for a while. "I'm fine," I said, forcing the words out. "You need to leave. Now." He nodded quickly, backing toward the door. Yeah, sorry. "I didn't mean," he trailed off, his eyes flickering over me one last time before he turned and slipped into the hallway. The door clicked shut behind him. I sat there, frozen, my heart still hammering. The lamp cast long shadows on the walls, and every creak of the house made me flinch. I grabbed my phone, my hands trembling as I checked the time again. 11:20. Jason wouldn't be home for at least another half hour. I thought about calling him, telling him to come home now, but what would I say? That Ryan was in our room? That he said he heard a noise? It sounded flimsy even to me. But the truth was heavier than that. The way Ryan had looked at me, the way he'd stood there in the dark, it wasn't right. It wasn't innocent. I got up and locked the bedroom door, something I hadn't done since Ryan moved in. Then I sat on the bed, clutching my phone, waiting for Jason's headlights to pull into the driveway. The house felt different now, like it wasn't mine anymore. Like something had slipped in with Ryan and was waiting in the shadows. I didn't sleep again that night. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I hadn't slept at all. My eyes were gritty, and my head throbbed from replaying the night before. Ryan standing at the foot of my bed, his lame excuse about a noise, the way his eyes lingered, it all felt like a bad dream I couldn't shake. I stayed in the bedroom longer than usual, dreading the thought of facing him downstairs. Jason was already up, humming in the kitchen as he made coffee. I could hear the clink of mugs, his familiar footsteps. It should have comforted me, but it didn't. Not today. I pulled on a hoodie, took a deep breath, and headed down. Ryan was there too, sitting at the table with a bowl of cereal, his phone in one hand. He looked up when I walked in, and for a split second, our eyes met. My stomach lurched, but I forced myself to look away, heading straight for Jason. "Morning, babe," Jason said, handing me a mug of coffee. He kissed my cheek, oblivious to the tension curling inside me. "Sleep okay?" I nodded, my throat tight. "Yeah, fine." Ryan didn't say anything, just kept scrolling on his phone like nothing had happened. I wanted to scream, to demand answers right there, but Jason was in such a good mood. I didn't want to ruin it, not yet. So I sipped my coffee, burning my tongue, and sat as far from Ryan as I could. The day dragged. Jason left for work, and I locked myself in the bedroom again, pretending to focus on a project. Really, I was just staring at my laptop, my mind stuck on Ryan. I kept going over it. Had I misunderstood? Was he really just checking for a noise? But no. The way he'd stood there, silent, watching me sleep, it wasn't okay. I wasn't crazy. By late afternoon, I couldn't take it anymore. I heard Ryan moving around downstairs, probably in the kitchen, judging by the sound of the fridge door. My hands were shaking, but I couldn't keep avoiding him. I needed to know what he was doing in my room. I needed to say something. I found him in the living room, sprawled on the couch, watching some car show on TV. He glanced up when I walked in, and that same small smile flickered on his face. It made my skin crawl. "Ryan," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "We need to talk." He sat up, muting the TV. "Yeah, what's up?" I crossed my arms, standing by the doorway so I could leave if I needed to. "Last night, you were in my room. I want to know why." His smile faded, and he leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "I told you, Mary. I thought I heard something. I was just making sure you were okay." "Bullshit," I snapped, surprising myself. My voice shook, but I kept going. "You were standing there, watching me. That's not checking for a noise. That's creepy." His eyes widened, and he stood up, hands raised like he was trying to calm me down. "Whoa, hold on. It wasn't like that. I swear, I didn't mean to freak you out." "Then what was it like?" I demanded, because I woke up and you were just standing there, Ryan. In my room, in the dark. That's not normal. He ran a hand through his hair, pacing a step. "Look, okay. Maybe I scared you and I'm sorry. I wasn't thinking. I heard a creak or something and Jason wasn't home. So I don't know, I checked. That's it." I stared at him, searching his face for the truth. His words sounded rehearsed, like he'd practiced them in his head. And his eyes, they didn't match his apology. They were too sharp, too focused on me. "I don't believe you," I said quietly. "And I want you to stay away from me. Don't come near my room again. Don't even talk to me unless Jason's here." He froze, his jaw tightening. For a second, I thought he might argue, but then he nodded. "Okay, if that's what you want." "It is," I said, my voice firm despite the way my heart was pounding. I turned and walked back upstairs, my legs shaky. I locked the bedroom door behind me. Even though it was the middle of the day, part of me felt better, like I'd taken back some control. But another part, the louder part, was screaming that this wasn't over. Ryan's excuse didn't add up, and his apology felt hollow. Worse, I still hadn't told Jason. Every time I thought about it, my chest tightened. Jason loved his brother. They'd been through so much together, losing their mom young, growing up with a dad who was barely around. If I told Jason what happened, it could break them apart. But if I didn't, I'd be stuck carrying this alone, watching Ryan's every move, waiting for something else to happen. I sat on the bed, staring at my phone. Jason's name was right there in my contacts. All I had to do was call him, tell him everything. But my thumb hovered over the screen, frozen. What if he didn't believe me? What if he thought I was overreacting? The thought made my stomach churn. I didn't call him. Not then. Instead, I pulled my knees to my chest and tried to focus on breathing. The house was too quiet, and every sound, the hum of the fridge, the creak of the floor, made me jump. Ryan was still downstairs. I could feel him like a shadow I couldn't shake. The days after confronting Ryan felt like walking on a tightrope. I was hyper-aware of every sound in the house, every movement. I avoided him as much as I could, sticking to the bedroom when Jason was at work and keeping my answers short when he was home. Ryan, for his part, seemed to respect my boundary, at least on the surface. He didn't talk to me unless Jason was around, and he stayed out of my way. But I didn't trust it. His apology hadn't felt real, and the memory of him standing in my room clung to me like damp clothes. I kept replaying that night, dissecting every detail. Had I missed something earlier? A sign that Ryan wasn't just awkward or flirty, but something worse? I started noticing things I hadn't before, like how he'd leave dishes in the sink for me to find, or how he'd walk past my open bedroom door a little too slowly. Small things, but they added up, making the house feel smaller, suffocating. The worst part was keeping it from Jason. Every night, I'd lie next to him, his arm heavy over my waist, and feel the weight of my silence. I wanted to tell him, God, I wanted to, but every time I opened my mouth, the word stuck. Jason was so happy having Ryan around. I'd catch him laughing with his brother over some dumb joke, or see them working on Jason's old motorcycle in the garage, and my resolve would crumble. How do you tell someone their family isn't who they think they are? One afternoon, I was in the kitchen making a sandwich when Ryan walked in. I froze, my knife hovering over the bread. He didn't look at me, just grabbed a soda from the fridge and started to leave. But then he stopped, his back to me. Mary, he said, his voice low. Can we talk for a sec? My grip tightened on the knife. I told you, not unless Jason's here. I know. He turned, hands raised like he was surrendering. I feel bad about the other night. I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable. I swear it was a mistake. I stared at him, my heart thudding. His tone was soft, almost pleading, but his eyes were too steady, like he was watching for my reaction. You already said sorry, I said flatly. I don't want to talk about it. He nodded, but he didn't move. Okay, I just don't want things to be weird. You're Jason's wife. I'd never do anything to mess that up. The way he said it, Jason's wife, made my skin prickle. It wasn't warm or respectful. It was like he was reminding himself. Or me. I didn't respond, just turned back to my sandwich, willing him to leave. After a moment, he did, the floor creaking under his steps. That night, I couldn't take it anymore. Jason was in the shower and I sat on the couch, my phone in my hands, scrolling through nothing. My chest felt tight, like I was drowning in my own secret. I kept imagining Ryan sneaking into our room again, standing over me while I slept. The thought made me want to scream. When Jason came downstairs, his hair damp and a towel around his neck, I knew I had to say something. He sat next to me, scrolling through his phone, and I took a shaky breath. Jason, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Can we talk? He looked up, his brow furrowing. Yeah, babe. What's wrong? I swallowed, my mouth dry. It's about Ryan. His face changed, just a flicker of worry. Ryan? What about him? I hesitated, my hands twisting in my lap. Something happened. The other night, when you were working late. I woke up and he was in our room. Jason blinked, his phone dropping to his lap. In our room? What do you mean? He was just standing there, I said, the words tumbling out. In the dark, watching me. He said he heard a noise, but I don't believe him. It didn't feel right. Jason stared at me, his jaw tight. Wait, hold on. He was in our bedroom. While you were sleeping. I nodded, tears stinging my eyes. I told him to leave, and I confronted him the next day. He apologized, but, Jason, I don't feel safe with him here. For a moment, Jason didn't say anything. He leaned back, running a hand over his face. I could see the gears turning, the way his love for his brother was wrestling with what I'd just said. Mary, he said finally, are you sure? I mean, Ryan's not. He wouldn't do something like that. Maybe it was a misunderstanding. My heart sank. It wasn't a misunderstanding, I said, my voice sharper than I meant. I know what I saw. What I felt. Okay, he said quickly, reaching for my hand. I believe you. I don't know why he'd do that. He's my brother. I know, I whispered. That's why I didn't want to tell you. Jason squeezed my hand, but his eyes were distant, like he was already replaying every moment with Ryan. I'll talk to him, he said. Tomorrow. I'll figure out what's going on. I nodded, but the relief I'd hoped for didn't come. Jason was trying, but I could hear the doubt in his voice, the part of him that didn't want to believe Ryan could be anything but the kid brother he'd always protected. And Ryan, he was still in the house, just down the hall, probably listening to the TV like nothing was wrong. That night, I locked the bedroom door again. Jason didn't comment, but I saw the way he glanced at it, his face heavy with something I couldn't name. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I'd made a mistake by telling him. Not because I doubted myself, I didn't, but because I knew things would never be the same. The morning after I told Jason about Ryan, the house felt like it was holding its breath. I barely slept, my mind stuck on Jason's promise to talk to his brother. I didn't know what to expect, anger, denial, or something worse. All I knew was that the truth was out, and there was no going back. Jason was up early, already in the kitchen when I came down. He was nursing a coffee, his eyes red-rimmed like he hadn't slept much either. Ryan wasn't there, thank God, but I could hear the faint sound of the shower running upstairs. Jason looked up when I walked in, his face tight with worry. Hey, he said, his voice low. You okay? I nodded, even though it wasn't true. You? He sighed, setting his mug down. I don't know, Mary. I've been up all night thinking about what you said. I need to hear it from him. I sat across from him, my hands wrapped around a mug I didn't drink from. What are you going to say? Jason shrugged, but his jaw was set. The truth. I'm going to ask him what the hell he was doing in our room. And why he didn't tell me. I wanted to believe it would be that simple, but my stomach churned. Ryan was good at excuses. I'd seen it firsthand. What if he twisted it, made it sound like I was paranoid? I pushed the thought down and reached for Jason's hand. Just be careful, okay? He squeezed my fingers, but his eyes were already somewhere else. Brace for what was coming. Ryan came downstairs a little while later, his hair wet from the shower, wearing a plain t-shirt and jeans. He glanced between us, his expression neutral, but I saw the way his shoulders tensed. He knew something was up. Morning, he said, grabbing a banana from the counter. What's with the serious faces? Jason didn't waste time. Ryan, sit down. We need to talk. Ryan's eyes flicked to me just for a second and my skin prickled. He sat, peeling his banana like it was no big deal. Sure, man. What's going on? Jason leaned forward, his hands clasped tight. Mary told me what happened the other night. That you were in our room while she was sleeping. I want to know why. For a moment, Ryan didn't move. Then he set the banana down, his face carefully blank. I told her already. I thought I heard a noise. I was checking on her. That's not good enough, Jason said, his voice rising. You don't just walk into our bedroom in the middle of the night. What were you doing, Ryan? Really? Ryan's calm cracked just a little. He leaned back, crossing his arms. Jesus, Jason. You're acting like I did something wrong. I was trying to help. I heard something, okay? I didn't want to wake her up if it was nothing. You were standing there watching her. I cut in, unable to stay quiet. You didn't say anything. Didn't move until I turned on the light. That's not checking for a noise. Ryan's eyes snapped to me, and for the first time, I saw something hard in them. Anger, maybe, or panic. You're blowing this out of proportion, Mary. I said I'm sorry. What else do you want? I want you to stop lying, I said, my voice shaking but firm. And I want you out of our house. The room went silent. Jason's head whipped toward me, his eyes wide, but he didn't argue. Ryan stared, his mouth half open, like he hadn't expected me to go that far. Then he laughed, a short, bitter sound. You serious? He said, looking at Jason. You're gonna let her kick me out over this? Jason's face was stone. She's my wife, Ryan. And I don't like what I'm hearing. You should have told me yourself. Why didn't you? Ryan's jaw worked, but no words came. He stood up, his chair scraping the floor. Fine. If that's how it is, I'll go. I don't need this. He stormed upstairs, and I heard the guest room door slam. Jason didn't move, his hands still clasped so tight his knuckles were white. I reached for him, but he pulled away, just slightly. It stung more than I expected. I'm sorry, I whispered. I didn't want it to come to this. I know, he said, but his voice was hollow. He's my brother, Mary. Ryan was gone by noon, his duffel bag slung over his shoulder. He didn't say goodbye, didn't look at me as he walked out. Jason drove him to a motel, and when he came back, he was quiet, his eyes distant. We tried to act normal, made dinner, watched a movie, but the air felt heavy, like something had broken. That night, in bed, Jason held me a little tighter than usual. I believe you, he said finally, his voice rough. I just wish it didn't have to be like this. Me too, I said, tears slipping down my cheeks. We rebuilt slowly. Jason started locking the doors at night, something he'd never done before. I stopped jumping at every sound, but the memory of Ryan in our room never faded. It was like a bruise, tender, always there under the surface. Jason and I talked more, leaned on each other, but I knew he missed his brother. I missed who I thought Ryan was. The house was ours again, but it didn't feel the same. Some things, once broken, stay that way.